The knock on my bedroom door came at 7 in the morning, sharp and insistent. I was still half asleep, tangled in sheets, when I heard my sister-in-law Amanda's voice cutting through the wood. "Natalie, we need to talk. Now." I pulled on a sweatshirt and opened the door to find Amanda standing in the hallway of my parents' house, arms crossed, her face set in that expression I'd come to know well over the past 5 years. The one that said she'd already decided something and was just waiting for me to comply. "The kids need this room," she announced without preamble. "Jackson and Sophie are sharing the guest room, and it's not working. They need separate spaces. You'll need to move to the basement." I blinked at her, my brain still foggy with sleep. "The basement. It's finished. There's a pull-out sofa. You'll be fine down there." "Amanda, this is my room. I've had this room since I was 8 years old. You're 32, Natalie. You don't need a childhood bedroom anymore. My children are 6 and 4. They need proper sleeping arrangements. Then maybe you should have considered that before you moved your family into my parents' house." Her eyes narrowed. "Your brother and I are going through a difficult time financially. Your parents generously offered to let us stay here until we get back on our feet. The least you could do is be accommodating. My name is Natalie Morrison. I'm 32 years old, and I've been living in my childhood home in Portland, Oregon for the past 18 months. Not because I couldn't afford to live elsewhere, but because my mother had been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's, and someone needed to be there to help my father care for her. That someone had been me. My older brother David lived across town with Amanda and their 2 children, visiting maybe once a month, always with excuses about work and the kids' schedules and how hard it was to find time. But when their financial situation imploded 6 weeks ago, suddenly my parents' house became the perfect solution to their problems. I'd come home from my job as a software developer at a downtown tech company to find moving trucks in the driveway and Amanda directing movers like a general commanding troops. My brother had been sheepish, apologetic. Amanda had been territorial from the first moment. "This arrangement is temporary," my father had assured me that night. "Just until they get back on their feet." But temporary had stretched from weeks into months, and Amanda had slowly begun treating the house like it was hers. She'd rearranged the kitchen. She'd taken over the living room with the kids' toys. She'd established rules about noise levels and meal times and what could be watched on television. And now she wanted my room. "I'm not moving to the basement," I said, keeping my voice level. "This is my room. I need my space, especially since I'm working from home 2 days a week. The basement has Wi-Fi." "It's a basement, Amanda. It's cold and damp, and it smells like mildew." "Then maybe it's time you found your own place. You're a grown woman living with your parents. It's a bit pathetic, don't you think?" The words hit like a slap. I felt my face flush, anger rising in my chest. "I'm here taking care of my mother. Something you and David should be doing but aren't. Your mother has your father. She doesn't need you hovering. My mother has Alzheimer's. She needs all the help she can get. And my children need proper sleeping arrangements. They're fighting constantly in that small room. Jackson threw a toy at Sophie this morning and gave her a bloody nose. This isn't sustainable." I took a breath, trying to find calm. "Then talk to David about finding your own place faster. Or put one of the kids in the basement." "My children are not sleeping in a basement. They're 6 and 4 years old. I'm not the problem here, Amanda. Your financial situation is the problem. Maybe if you hadn't insisted on private school and a house you couldn't afford." "How dare you?" Her voice rose, sharp enough that I heard footsteps on the stairs. "You have no idea what we've been through. David lost his job. The economy crashed. We did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. And now we're here, begging for help, and you can't even give up one room." My father appeared at the top of the stairs, his face lined with exhaustion. He'd aged 10 years in the 18 months since Mom's diagnosis. "What's going on?" "Amanda wants me to move to the basement so Jackson and Sophie can have separate rooms," I explained. Dad looked at Amanda, then at me. "Natalie's room has always been Natalie's room." "But the children," Amanda started. "The children are fine in the guest room. Siblings share rooms all the time. I shared a room with my brother until I was 12. That was different. That was your own home. We're guests here." "Exactly," Dad said quietly. "You're guests. Natalie lives here. She's been here taking care of her mother while working full-time. She's not giving up her room. Amanda's face went red. This is ridiculous. I'm going to talk to David. She stormed down the stairs. I heard her in the kitchen, her voice rising as she called my brother. Dad squeezed my shoulder. I'm sorry, Nat. I should have set clearer boundaries when they moved in. It's fine, Dad. It's not fine. None of this is fine. He looked toward the stairs, toward where we could hear Amanda's increasingly agitated voice. I thought we were helping. I'm not sure we're helping anyone. He went downstairs, leaving me standing in the hallway outside my room. The door was still open. I could see inside, to the space that had been mine for 24 years. The walls I'd painted 3 different colors over the years, currently a soft gray. The built-in bookshelves my father had installed when I was 10. The window seat where I used to read for hours, looking out at the backyard. But it was more than just a childhood bedroom. It was where I'd been living and working for the past 18 months, where I'd set up my home office in the corner, where I kept the medication schedules and care instructions for Mom, where I collapsed at the end of exhausting days of work and caregiving and trying to hold everything together. And Amanda wanted me to give it up for her kids' convenience. I went back into my room and closed the door. Locked it. Then I sat at my desk and opened my laptop, trying to focus on work. But Amanda's words kept echoing. You're a grown woman living with your parents. It's a bit pathetic. Maybe to someone who didn't understand the situation, it would look pathetic. A 32-year-old woman in her childhood bedroom, no apartment of her own, no mortgage, no visible signs of independent adult life. But the reality was more complicated. I'd moved back home because my mother needed me. Because my father was drowning trying to manage her care alone. Because David lived 20 minutes away but somehow couldn't find time to help more than once or twice a month. Because someone had to make sure Mom took her medications, had to be there when she forgot where she was, had to hold her when she cried because she couldn't remember my father's name. That someone had been me. And I'd done it without complaint, without asking for anything except understanding. Now Amanda was treating me like I was the problem, like I was the one taking advantage, like I should be grateful to be shoved into the basement so her children could have more space. The day passed tensely. I worked from my room, taking calls and attending virtual meetings, trying to ignore the sounds of Amanda moving through the house below. Around noon, I heard her in the hallway outside my door, her footsteps stopping, then moving on. She did this twice more that afternoon. Testing. Checking. Making her presence known. At dinner, the atmosphere was glacial. Amanda sat next to David, whispering to him periodically. David looked uncomfortable, caught between his wife and his family. Mom was having a good day, relatively speaking. She recognized everyone and participated in the conversation, though she repeated herself several times and got confused about whether dinner was breakfast. Natalie helped me with my puzzle today, Mom said, smiling at me. She's so patient. That's nice, honey, Dad said. Amanda made a sound that might have been agreement or might have been dismissal. I couldn't tell and didn't care. After dinner, David caught me in the kitchen while I was loading the dishwasher. Nat, can we talk? If this is about the room, the answer is still no. Amanda just thinks it would be better for the kids. The kids are fine, David. What wouldn't be fine is me trying to work from home in a damp basement while taking care of Mom. You don't have to take care of Mom. That's not your responsibility. I turned to face him fully. Then whose responsibility is it? Yours? Because you're here maybe twice a week. Dad's? Because he's exhausted and overwhelmed. Who do you think is making sure Mom eats breakfast? Who's managing her medications? Who's redirecting her when she gets confused? Who's dealing with the insurance companies and the doctor's appointments and the constant, endless details of caring for someone with Alzheimer's? David looked away. I have my own family to take care of. So do I. This is my family too. Mom is my mother just as much as she's yours. But you don't have kids. You don't understand the pressure. Don't. I held up my hand. Don't tell me I don't understand pressure. I work full-time. I'm a caregiver. I'm doing the job you should be sharing. And I'm doing it without complaining or asking for recognition. All I'm asking is that you and your wife respect my space. One room, Nat. She's just asking for one room. It's my room, David. It's where I live. It's where I work. It's where I keep all my stuff. Where exactly am I supposed to put everything? Where am I supposed to have privacy? Where am I supposed to exist in this house? He didn't have an answer. He stood there looking guilty and tired, and I felt a flash of sympathy for him. He was caught in an impossible situation, trying to keep his wife happy while knowing, on some level, that she was being unreasonable. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "Amanda's stressed. The kids are stressed. Living here isn't what she expected. None of this is what any of us expected. But we're all making it work except her." He left without responding. I finished loading the dishwasher and went upstairs, locking my door behind me. I sat on my bed and pulled out my phone, scrolling through apartment listings I couldn't afford. Not because I didn't have money, but because moving out meant leaving Mom, leaving Dad to handle everything alone, abandoning the commitment I'd made to be here for my family. But maybe that's what I needed to do. Maybe staying was just enabling David to avoid his responsibilities. Maybe the only way to force him to step up was to step back. I was still thinking about this when I heard it. The sound of my doorknob turning. Once. Twice. Someone testing to see if it was locked. I got up and opened the door. Amanda stood there, her face flushed. "Why is your door locked?" "Because I want privacy." "That's rude. This isn't a hotel. We're family. Which is why you should respect my privacy. I was just going to talk to you about the room situation." "There is no room situation. I'm not moving to the basement." "That's final. You're being incredibly selfish." "I'm being self-protective." "There's a difference." She stared at me, her jaw tight. "Fine. But don't come crying to me when the kids are up at night fighting and screaming. That's on you." She turned and walked away. I closed the door and locked it again, my heart pounding. This couldn't continue. Something had to change. The next morning, I woke to find that something had changed, just not in the way I'd expected. Amanda had been in my room. I could tell immediately. Small things were out of place. My desk drawer was slightly open. Papers I'd left stacked on my dresser were rearranged. The closet door, which I always kept closed, was ajar. I stood in the doorway, my skin crawling. She'd come in while I was at work. She'd gone through my things. She'd invaded the one space that was supposed to be mine. I called Dad at work. Amanda was in my room. She went through my stuff. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Things are moved. Drawers are open." "Dad, she was looking for something." "Looking for what?" "I don't know. Maybe she wanted to see if I had valuable stuff she could claim for the kids. Maybe she was just being nosy. But she was in here and she shouldn't have been." "I'll talk to David." "Talking isn't working. Amanda doesn't respect boundaries. She thinks because you're helping them, she has the right to do whatever she wants." Dad was quiet for a moment. "What do you want me to do, Nat? Kick them out?" "They have nowhere to go. I want locks that actually work. I want my privacy respected. I want Amanda to understand that this is still my home, not hers." "I'll handle it." But I knew he wouldn't. Not really. Because handling it meant confronting David, and Dad hated confrontation. It meant potentially causing a rift in the family, and Dad would do anything to avoid that. So Amanda would continue pushing, continue invading, continue treating me like an obstacle rather than a person. That night, I installed a security camera in my room. A small one, hidden on my bookshelf, angled to capture anyone who came through the door. If Amanda was going to violate my privacy, I was going to have proof. 2 days later, I was at work when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the app and watched live footage of Amanda entering my room. She looked around quickly, then went straight to my desk. She opened drawers methodically, searching through papers, picking things up and examining them, taking photos with her phone of documents I kept in my top drawer. Financial documents. Bank statements. Investment accounts. I felt ice flood my veins. She wasn't just being nosy. She was gathering information. But for what? I saved the footage and kept watching. Amanda spent 15 minutes in my room, going through everything with the thoroughness of someone conducting an inventory. When she finally left, I sat at my desk at work, shaking with anger and something else. Fear, maybe. Because this wasn't just about a bedroom anymore. This was something more deliberate, more calculated. I went home early, pleading a headache. Amanda was in the kitchen making lunch for the kids. She looked up when I came in, her expression neutral. "You're home early." "I am." "Feeling okay?" "Just need to lie down." I went upstairs to my room and checked the camera footage. Backed it up to the cloud. Then I went through my desk drawers to see what, exactly, Amanda had been so interested in. The answer became clear quickly. My financial documents were all slightly out of place. My bank statements, showing the healthy balance I maintained. My investment account statements, showing the portfolio I'd been building for years. My paycheck stubs, showing my salary as a senior software developer. Amanda had been cataloging my assets. She knew exactly how much money I had. I sat on my bed, thinking, why would she need this information? What was she planning? The answer came 3 days later when David asked to speak with me in the living room. Amanda sat beside him on the couch. Dad was there too, looking uncomfortable. Mom was upstairs taking a nap. "Nat, we need to talk about the situation here," David began. "What situation?" "The living situation. It's not sustainable long term." "I agree. When are you moving out?" Amanda leaned forward. "That's what we need to discuss. David and I have been looking at our options, and the reality is we can't afford to move out anytime soon. Not if we want to rebuild our savings and get back on our feet financially." "Okay, so what are you proposing?" "We're proposing a more equitable distribution of space," Amanda said. "Currently, you have the largest bedroom in the house. You're one person. We're a family of 4. It makes sense for us to have that room, and for you to take the smaller space. The basement. Or the guest room that the kids are currently in. We'd be willing to move one of the children to the basement if you took the guest room." I looked at my father. "Dad?" He shifted uncomfortably. "They did ask to discuss it with me first." "And what did you say?" "I said we could have a family conversation about it." "This isn't a negotiation," I said. "I'm not giving up my room." Amanda's expression hardened. "Natalie, you need to think about what's best for the family. We're all making sacrifices here. David and I have given up our home. We're living with my in-laws. We've swallowed our pride. The least you could do is be flexible about sleeping arrangements." "I am being flexible. I'm sharing my home with you. I'm sharing the kitchen, the living room, the bathrooms. I'm not sharing my bedroom." "You have significantly more financial resources than we do," Amanda said, and I realized where this was going. "You could easily afford your own apartment. You choose to live here. I live here to take care of Mom. Your father is capable of caring for his own wife. My father is exhausted. He needs help. Help that you're volunteering, not help that's required. You're choosing to be here. We don't have a choice." I stood up. "I've had enough of this conversation. My answer is no. I'm keeping my room. If you need more space, you're welcome to find it elsewhere." "We're not going anywhere," Amanda said, her voice rising. "We have just as much right to be in this house as you do." "Actually, you don't. This is my parents' house. You're guests here. I live here. There's a difference. A difference you're using to lord your position over us. You think you're better than us because you're not struggling financially. You think you deserve more space, more consideration, more everything because you have a better job and more money. This isn't about money. Everything is about money." Amanda stood too, facing me. "You have money. We don't. You could solve this entire problem by moving out, but you won't because you like having the moral high ground. You like being the dutiful daughter taking care of Mommy while your irresponsible brother struggles. It makes you feel superior." "That's enough," Dad said, finally finding his voice. "Amanda, that's not fair. What's not fair is your daughter refusing to help her own family. What's not fair is her hoarding space and resources while we're crammed into one room with 2 small children. What's not fair is her making us beg for basic consideration." "No one's making you beg," I said quietly. "You're demanding something that isn't yours to demand. That's not the same thing." "Fine." Amanda grabbed her purse. "If that's how it's going to be, then we need to revisit this entire arrangement. David, we need to talk. In private." She walked out. David followed, looking miserable. Dad and I sat in silence. "I'm sorry, Nat. I should have shut that down sooner." "It's okay." "It's not okay." She was out of line. I didn't respond. Because Amanda had revealed something important. She'd shown her hand. This wasn't just about a bedroom. This was about power. About control. About Amanda trying to establish dominance in a house that wasn't hers, over people she thought she could manipulate. And she'd made a crucial mistake. She'd let me see that she knew about my finances. Amanda's face crumpled. Real tears this time, not strategic ones. Please. The kids. Jackson and Sophie. Where will they go? They've been through so much already. Dad's expression softened slightly, but his voice remained firm. Then you should have thought about that before you violated Natalie's privacy repeatedly. Before you tried to manipulate the situation with attorneys and police. Before you made my home feel like a battlefield. Thomas, please. Amanda turned to my father, her hands clasped. I made mistakes. I was desperate. But don't punish my children for my poor judgment. 60 days, Dad repeated. I'll help you with first month's rent if needed. But you need to find your own place. David looked at me, and I saw something in his face I hadn't seen in years. Shame. Real, deep shame. Nat, I'm sorry. I should have stopped this before it got this far. Yes, you should have. Amanda was just trying to. I don't care what she was trying to do. She went through my private documents. She photographed my bank statements. She was planning something, David. Something that involved my finances. And you let her. I didn't know. Yes, you did. Maybe not the details, but you knew she was pushing boundaries. You knew she was making me uncomfortable. And you chose her manipulation over common decency. Mom appeared at the top of the stairs, confused by the raised voices. What's happening? Why is everyone shouting? I went to her, guiding her back to her room. It's okay, Mom. Just a family discussion. Let's get you some breakfast. As I helped my mother navigate the morning routine she could no longer remember, I heard Amanda and David arguing downstairs. Her voice pleading, his defensive. The kids crying, sensing the tension even if they didn't understand it. Dad's firm footsteps walking away from the conversation. Everything had broken open. The careful pretense that we were all just family helping each other had shattered, revealing the ugly truth underneath. Amanda's entitlement. David's weakness. My own limits on how much I would sacrifice for the sake of keeping peace. 60 days felt like both too long and not long enough. The next 2 months were tense but quieter. Amanda stopped entering my room. She barely spoke to me at all, actually, moving through the house like a ghost, focused entirely on apartment hunting and job applications. David picked up more responsibility with Mom, finally stepping into the caregiver role he should have been sharing all along. The kids, Jackson and Sophie, seemed almost relieved by the structure returning. They stopped fighting as much. Jackson started asking me about my work, curious about coding. Sophie showed me her drawings, shy but hopeful for attention. I realized they'd been absorbing their parents' stress, acting out because they didn't know how else to express it. They weren't bad kids. They were scared kids with parents who were too overwhelmed to help them process everything. 3 weeks before the 60-day deadline, David found a job. Not the high-paying position he'd had before, but steady work with benefits. A week later, they signed a lease on a 3-bedroom apartment in Beaverton. Small, but enough for the 4 of them. The night before they moved out, David knocked on my door. I opened it to find him standing in the hallway, looking older somehow. More weathered. Can I come in? I stepped back, letting him enter. He looked around the room, seeing it properly for the first time in months. The security camera I'd never bothered to take down. The locked drawer where I kept important documents now. The subtle fortifications I'd built to protect myself from his wife. I'm sorry, Nat. For all of it. I know. No, you don't. Not really. He sat in my desk chair, his hands clasped between his knees. When Amanda and I got married, I thought I was getting a partner. Someone who would make life easier, better. Instead, I got someone who needed constant management. Constant damage control. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing other people clearly because I was so busy trying to keep her happy. She was drowning, David. You both were. That's not an excuse for what she did. For what I let her do. No, it's not. He looked up at me. Mom's been asking for me more. When I'm not here. Did you know that? I did. She doesn't always remember my name, but she knows there should be a son around. She asks where David is. Where her boy went. His voice cracked. And you've been covering for me. Telling her I'm at work. That I'll visit soon. Making excuses for me like you've done our whole lives. Someone had to. That's the problem. Someone has always had to clean up after me. Dad, when I was younger. You once I became an adult. Amanda's issues are bad, but I enabled them. I enabled all of it because it was easier than taking responsibility. I sat on my bed, facing him. So, what are you going to do differently? I'm going to be here. Really here. 2 evenings a week, I'm coming over to help with Mom. Amanda can handle the kids for a few hours. And weekend mornings, I'll take over so Dad can rest. And you. He met my eyes. You can have your life back. You can date, or travel for work, or just exist without feeling like you're the only one holding everything together. Why no? Why not 6 months ago? Because 6 months ago, I was still in denial that my life had fallen apart. I was still trying to pretend that if I just kept my head down and pushed through, everything would magically fix itself. Hitting bottom, losing the house, having to move in here, it should have been my wake-up call. Instead, I let Amanda turn it into a campaign to take over Dad's house. I let her make you the enemy because that was easier than looking at my own failures. And now? Now I've seen what happens when I don't set boundaries. When I don't step up. I almost lost my relationship with my father. I definitely damaged my relationship with you. And my kids have been learning that it's okay to take things that don't belong to you if you can justify it as need. He stood up. I'm going to do better. Not perfect, but better. And if Amanda can't handle that, if she needs me to be weak so she can feel strong, then we're going to have bigger problems to deal with. After he left, I sat in the quiet of my room for a long time. Change felt possible for the first time in months. Not easy change, not comfortable change. But the possibility that things could be different than they'd been. The next morning, I helped them load the moving truck. Amanda barely acknowledged me, but when Sophie hugged me goodbye, Amanda didn't pull her away. Small progress. Jackson asked if he could visit sometimes to see Grandma. I said yes. After they left, the house felt different. Emptier, but in a good way. Like a pressure valve had been released. Dad and I stood in the driveway, watching the truck disappear around the corner. You okay? I asked him. Relieved. Sad. Guilty. All of it. That sounds about right. Thank you for staying through all that. I know it wasn't easy. It's my home too, Dad. That's what I kept trying to explain to Amanda. This isn't just your house or David's temporary housing. It's where I live. Where I chose to be. He put his arm around my shoulders. Your mother would be proud of you. For standing your ground. For not letting them push you around. Mom would have had them organized and sorted out in a week. Probably. She was always better at family than I was. We went inside. Mom was in the living room, working on a puzzle. She looked up when we entered, her face lighting up. There you are. I've been looking for you. I've been right here, Mom, Dad said, settling beside her. Have you? I forget sometimes. She patted his hand, then went back to her puzzle. A good moment. A clear moment. They were getting rarer. I made lunch while Dad stayed with Mom. The kitchen felt bigger without Amanda's presence, without her things crowding the counters and her rules about what went where. I could breathe again. My phone buzzed. A text from my friend Melissa, who I'd been neglecting for months. Heard your brother finally moved out. Drinks tonight to celebrate? I almost said no. I was tired. I'd been in crisis mode for so long that the idea of socializing felt overwhelming. But Melissa was persistent, and maybe that's what I needed. A reminder that I had a life outside of being a caregiver and a referee in family drama. Yes, I typed back. Definitely yes. That evening, I sat across from Melissa at a wine bar in the Pearl District, telling her everything. The room demands. The privacy violations. The police visit. She listened with increasing disbelief. I can't believe Amanda went through your stuff. That's so invasive. She was desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. That doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't. But I understand it better now. She wasn't just trying to take my room. She was trying to take back control of her life. She just chose the wrong target. You're being very generous. I'm being realistic. Amanda and I will probably never be close. But she's my brother's wife. She's my niece and nephew's mother. If David's actually going to step up like he says he will, I need to find a way to coexist with her. Not as friends. Just as family. Melissa refilled my wine glass. So what happens now? You stay in that house forever, taking care of your mom. I don't know. Maybe. Probably not forever, but for now. I swirled the wine, watching it catch the light. I've been thinking about what Amanda said. About me having options they didn't have. She was right about that, even if she was wrong about what it meant I owed them. You don't owe them anything. Not them. But I owe myself something. I've been so focused on duty and responsibility that I forgot I'm allowed to have wants. Desires. A life that's about more than caregiving and work. Such as maybe dating. Maybe traveling for photography again, I used to love that. Maybe remodeling mom's old craft room into a proper home office instead of working from my bedroom. Maybe buying one of those expensive espresso machines I've been wanting. Little things that make life feel like it's mine, not just something I'm managing for other people. Now you're talking. Melissa raised her glass. To Natalie Morrison, who stood her ground, protected her space, and came out the other side still standing. We clinked glasses. The wine was good. The company was better. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not the beleaguered daughter or the put-upon sister. Just Natalie. A woman with her own life and her own choices. 6 months after David and Amanda moved out, I was working from my remodeled home office when I heard David's car in the driveway. He came twice a week now, regular as clockwork. Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings. Sometimes he brought the kids. Sometimes he came alone so he could really focus on mom. Today he had Jackson with him. My nephew is 7 now, taller and more serious than he'd been during those tense months. He came upstairs to find me, knocking politely on my office door. Aunt Nat? Can I show you something? I saved my work and turned to face him. Sure, buddy. What's up? He pulled out his tablet and opened a coding app. I've been learning Python. Look what I made. He showed me a simple program that displayed his name in different colors and patterns. Basic, but well executed for a 7-year-old. This is great, Jackson. Did your dad help you? A little. But mostly I figured it out from YouTube videos. There's this guy who explains things really clearly. You know, if you're interested, I could show you some more advanced stuff. We could do a coding session once a month or something. If your parents are okay with it. His face lit up. Really? That would be awesome. David appeared in the doorway. What would be awesome? Aunt Nat said she'd teach me coding. David looked at me surprised. You do that. If it's okay with you and Amanda. It's more than okay. Thank you, Nat. After they went downstairs to sit with Mom, I returned to my work. But I kept thinking about Jackson's excited face. About how the disaster of those 60 days had somehow led to something good. A nephew who wanted to learn from me. A brother who was actually showing up. A family that was learning, slowly, to function in healthier ways. It wasn't perfect. Amanda and I still barely spoke when we crossed paths at family events. She'd found a job as an administrative assistant and was slowly rebuilding her confidence. David said she was in therapy, working through the shame of what she'd done during their crisis. Maybe someday we'd have an actual conversation about it. Maybe not. Either way was okay. What mattered was the boundaries held. My room remained mine. My privacy was respected. And the family had learned that there were lines that couldn't be crossed, even in crisis. A year after the police visit, I came home from work to find a package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a framed photograph of a rose garden, professionally matted and mounted. The kind of thing that cost real money, not a quick Amazon purchase. There was a card tucked inside. Natalie, I've wanted to write this for a long time but couldn't find the words. I'm still not sure I have them. What I did was wrong. Violating your privacy. Going through your things. Trying to force you out of your own space. I told myself I was doing it for my kids. That desperation justified my actions. It didn't. You were helping your family. I was trying to take from you. There's a difference. I'm working on being better. Being someone my children can be proud of. Someone who doesn't justify bad behavior with hard circumstances. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I see what I did. I see the harm I caused. And I'm sorry. The photograph is from a garden near our apartment. Sophie said it reminded her of the pictures in your room. I thought you might like it. Amanda. I hung the photograph in my office. Not because we were suddenly friends. Not because one apology erased months of violations. But because it represented something important. Growth. Accountability. The possibility that people could learn from their worst moments. That evening, I helped Dad give Mom her medication. She was having a bad day, didn't recognize either of us clearly. But she was calm, comfortable in her routine. Dad had aged noticeably over the past 2 years, but there was less strain in his face now. David's regular visits helped. My continued presence helped. We'd built a sustainable system. You know, Dad said as we got Mom settled in bed, you could still move out if you wanted. David's here enough now. We'd manage. I know. But I'm not ready yet. Maybe someday. For now, this works. Just don't let this become your whole life. You're 33. You should be out building your own future, not managing ours. I'm doing both. That's allowed. He smiled. Your mother would say the same thing. After Dad went to bed, I sat in my room, my secured, private room that no one entered without permission, and opened my laptop. My dating profile had been dormant for 2 years. I updated my photos, rewrote my bio, added details about my life that were true. I live with my parents to help care for my mother. I'm a software developer who loves photography. I value boundaries and honesty. I'm looking for someone who understands that family obligations and personal happiness aren't mutually exclusive. I hit publish and closed the laptop. Whether anyone responded didn't really matter. What mattered was I was choosing to try. Choosing to believe I could have both, the responsibility I'd committed to and the life I wanted to build. My phone buzzed. David, Jackson can't stop talking about coding lessons. How's next Saturday? Saturday works, I typed back. Another text, this one from Melissa. Girls trip to the coast next month. You in? I checked my calendar, confirmed Dad and David could cover Mom's care. I'm in. The house was quiet around me. My house. My parents' house. The place where I lived by choice, not obligation. The place I defended fiercely because it represented more than just a room or space. It represented my right to exist on my own terms, even while caring for others. Amanda had tried to take that away. She'd failed. Not because I was stronger or richer or better, but because I'd understood something she hadn't. You can't solve your problems by diminishing someone else. You can't build yourself up by tearing others down. And you can't demand space in someone's life without offering respect in return. These were lessons that should have been obvious. But crisis makes people forget obvious things. Desperation makes people justify terrible choices. And family, complicated, messy, imperfect family, was where we learned whether we could hold to our values when it would be easier to surrender them. I'd held my ground. Not perfectly. Not without cost. But I'd held it. And now, in the quiet of my room, surrounded by my things in my space that no one could take from me, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. If you've ever had to protect your boundaries from people who should have respected them automatically, you know that the victory isn't in the confrontation. It's in the quiet aftermath when you realize you survived with your sense of self intact. When you understand that setting limits doesn't make you selfish, it makes you sustainable. There are more stories like mine. Stories of families that break and heal and break again. Stories of people learning to love each other while maintaining the boundaries that keep that love healthy. Stories of crisis that reveals character, and character that determines whether relationships survive. My story didn't end with Amanda and David moving out. It didn't end with apologies or changed behavior or newfound understanding. It continues every day that I choose to be here, helping my mother, supporting my father, teaching my nephew, building my life within the boundaries I've set. Those boundaries are what make everything else possible. And they're worth protecting. 2 years after the police visit, I attended Jackson's 9th birthday party at David and Amanda's apartment. It was a small celebration, family only. Sophie showed me her room, proud of the posters she'd picked out. Jackson demonstrated his latest coding project, more sophisticated than anything I'd expected from a 9-year-old. Amanda was in the kitchen when I went to refill my coffee. We hadn't been alone together since I'd found her measuring my room 2 years ago. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice careful. "Of course. He's my nephew. And thank you for the coding lessons. He talks about them constantly. He's a good student. Really talented." She turned to face me fully. "I need to say something. About what happened. About what I did. Amanda, you already apologized. The letter. The letter was a start. But I need to say this in person. I need you to see my face when I tell you that I was wrong. That I let my fear turn me into someone cruel. That I tried to take from you because I couldn't handle how much I'd lost." Her eyes were red but clear. "You were the only one being generous during that time. Letting us stay. Sharing your home. And I repaid that by violating your privacy and trying to push you out. I'm ashamed of who I was then. You were drowning. That's an explanation, not an excuse. I know the difference now." We stood in the small kitchen, the sounds of children laughing in the living room, David's voice telling some story. Family noise.